letting me know how we do that. Okay. Hi, everyone. In today's workshop, we have Gina Choi, and she's going to be presenting how to launch a startup.
Okay, hi, I'm Gina, a high school senior. I was the youngest winner of the largest hackathon in the world, and I've ran various organizations throughout high school and received funding from large companies. Currently, I'm working on Notes for Support, which is a website where anyone can submit a note to a COVID-19 healthcare worker or patient, which are then printed and sent to hospitals. So far, we've sent over 10,000 notes to patients and staff and partnered with over 150 hospitals in 37 states. Today, I'm going to lead you through the process on how to launch a startup or organization. So the first step in launching anything is the ideation process. As you may know, ideation always starts with a problem. So let's say our problem is COVID-19. Well, the issue is that's too broad to tackle. So what you want to do is take that problem and break it down to as many branches as possible. The reason is, not only is it impossible to tackle such a large problem, but also it's always better to just do one thing really well than to try to do a lot of things. Take Google, for example. It's just a search engine. Instagram is a photo sharing app. YouTube has videos. Sure, they all do a lot of things, but at their core, they do one thing really well that sets them apart from other companies. So, every problem has a ton of little problems, and you shouldn't set out to do all of them, but to narrow it down to just one. And to do that, you first have to deconstruct the problem. So when brainstorming, you always want to turn off all your filters and churn out as many ideas as you can. It doesn't matter how dumb it sounds, just list them down. Sometimes the dumbest ideas turn out to be the most brilliant. After you have a huge pool of ideas, you want to weed them out based on feasibility and value. Feasibility is pretty obvious. It's whatever you can do considering the time, cost, and skills required. But value is a little trickier to nail. Basically, it boils down to three things. One, is there a need for it? Two, is it relevant in regards to current events, trends, and things that people care about? And three, is there someone else out there who's doing it? And if there is, what are you doing that makes your idea better than theirs? Now, once you have an idea that you think will be the most feasible and provide the most value, and hence have the most demand, you should just go with it. This part is what so many people don't understand. When you have a good idea, don't sweat the little stuff, like making the website look nice or creating a social media campaign. You should just launch it. It's critical that you get your idea out there, because at the end of the day, speed will always be most important. Now, this is pretty obvious if it's a timely issue. For instance, I launched Notes for Support just 10 days after the lockdown started, because I knew that at that time, people would be at home and looking for ways to help out. And sure enough, that's the reason why it got big so quickly. But perhaps more importantly, and less obvious, is your competitors. When you're working on finding the perfect company name and making the site look nice, someone else is going to get started. And at the end of the day, the things that get a head start are going to be more successful. You can always add on to your project, but you can't always be first. And launching quickly is one of the biggest advantages that you can have. So step 2 is the pitch for investors and partners. Firstly, cold calling or emailing is probably the most effective method. It's basically when you just call and email companies without having any prior connections. And the number one rule to doing this is to sound like a kid. So I'm not saying to use slang or have grammatical mistakes, but I am saying don't use all this technical jargon or try to sound like an adult. If you think about it, the people who are receiving your emails are people who are in the office all day talking to business people. They want to talk to young people because it's refreshing. Which brings me to my next point. Your age is your biggest asset. Honestly, there are so many things that people would do for high schoolers that they wouldn't even think about doing for college students. So whenever I contact a company, I always mention that I'm a high school student in the first line because it stands out and it works. I've actually had like a couple of senior executives respond back to my emails because they were intrigued. They don't often get an email from younger students, and that's something that's going to really help you stand out. Now, when you cold call or email someone, you need to explain the why. Not only why your idea is worth investing in, but also why you care about that idea. Secondly, simplicity is key. These people don't have time to read long emails, so you need to get to your point quickly. And finally, when you're sending out emails or calls, quality is much more important than quantity. Sending a bad email to 200 companies won't get you any responses. First, start off with a few companies, and if they don't respond, keep tweaking your pitch and try it out with others. Now, this is a lot of work, so you might be wondering if there is an easier method. And there is, having companies reaching out to you instead. However, this is very, very rare. You have to have a really good product that has a lot of potential for people to reach out to you. There's no secret formula to this, and it's extremely unlikely. But this is how I did it, and hopefully how you can improve your chances. First, you have to get yourself out there. What I did was I created and submitted notes for support at a hackathon that was sponsored by Jiffy. And their CEO really liked my project, so he ended up funding it. I also attended an event hosted by Brother Industries and ended up chatting with a manager there who then connected me to his higher-ups. Afterwards, they ended up sponsoring a project of mine. So I highly recommend that you take advantage of hackathons, competitions, and events, especially since everything is online now. You can pretty much meet anyone. But again, I want to reiterate that this scenario is very rare. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. And at the end of the day, you should put in the effort and go for the cold calls and emails. Finally, marketing. You should always start off with social media. Although in my opinion, it alone isn't always effective, it's very important to have an online presence. I've actually had quite a few journalists from newspapers and radio stations reach out to me via Instagram, so definitely try to have an online presence. Additionally, having an online presence opens up the possibility of having other people do the promoting for you. Now, this is really difficult because they have to reach out to you, not the other way around. But I'll break it down so you have a better idea of what they're looking for. First, for partners, as in having brands promoting you on social media, relevance is crucial. You have to ask yourself, how does your idea specifically overlap with their brand and values? And most importantly, is the return on investment. You need to think about what they would gain from promoting you. For media, relevance is probably the most important, but it's different for relevance for a brand. For them, relevance is, why should our viewers care? Why should they be interested? And it's a huge bonus if it's relevant in terms of current events or trends. So you should always try to keep up with the news and continuously be thinking of ways that you could create something, a product, an organization, a startup that will help alleviate some issues that are going on. Now, the media is the best method for getting users. For example, after I went on TV, the radio, and a couple newspapers, thousands of people started coming on the Notes for Support website every day. Now, as I said before, getting partners and media coverage is not easy, but it is definitely possible. And I've seen a lot of students actually get featured on the media and news, especially for COVID-19 cases, because it's a huge thing right now. So keeping all of these things in mind will definitely help you. In recap, if you have an idea, you should first just go for it. And it's really all about how you pitch it. You should definitely try to reach out to people by cold calling and emailing. And finally, for marketing, you should focus on the questions, why would anyone care? And why would the user use it? If you can follow these steps and answer these questions, then you've got yourself a great project. Okay, thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Um, so, so I'll answer the first question. How did I come up with the idea for Notes for Support? Well, actually, like 2 years ago, before COVID-19, I was actually in quarantine myself due to a serious eye disease. And during that time, I experienced like a lot of pain and I felt really lonely. And one thing that really helped me was getting cards from friends and family. But actually, the one card that really stuck out to me the most was a card that I got from someone that I didn't even know. It was a girl who was the daughter of my mom's friend. And that just really struck me because it was just like someone else is thinking about you, even though they don't even know who you are. So when I was trying to think of ideas to help like people who are in quarantine and are in hospitals right now and are facing isolation, I just thought this is kind of like something that we could do, and adding a physical aspect of it instead of having electronic notes will definitely make it more personal. Um, what has been my favorite project that I've worked on so far? Well, I actually have a lot of projects that I've loved working on. Like for instance, um, one in particular is Sunday Hacks. So we partnered up with this nonprofit called Sunday Friends, which helps serves like underprivileged families in East San Jose. And we've worked on creating a hackathon and a series of workshops for them. And we've gotten like sponsors, and we were planning out this event to help introduce them to tech, but it actually got postponed due to COVID-19. Um, some obstacles I faced throughout my journey to creating Notes for Support. Well, I definitely say that one obstacle like that's going on right now is having people like, there are some people who actually like copied like word for word like my site, and even though it shouldn't like bother you that much, it does really like, it does hurt to see that like once you have something going, there are going to be people who will try to also do the same thing. And even though it's, if it's for a good cause, like it just kind of doesn't feel great to have something that you've worked so hard for getting like replicated by other people. But I think it's just part of the process, and you just have to keep working on how can you make your thing better. And yeah, you will definitely experience that once you start working on a lot of projects. And for the final question, who is my role model and why? Um, Actually, I haven't really thought of this question. I'd say that I definitely look up to my parents because my dad is an engineer, and he's always like encouraged me to work on small projects on the side. And my mom, she encouraged me because she just does a lot of volunteer work, and she's even like going helping out people right now during COVID-19, visiting like uh, like the elderly, and so she just encouraged me to like work on stuff that will help others. Uh, and handling the financial aspects. So I started a GoFundMe, and that raised, I think, like 1.2K. And I also got funding, as I said before, from the CEO of Jiffy and some other companies. Yeah. Okay. If that's all the questions, thank you so much for listening. I hope this was helpful and helps you on like your project and just gets you like thinking about like things that you could start on.
Thank you so much for hosting a workshop with us. We really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you so much.